In just 9 days, TikTok is set to disappear from America's app stores after Congress passed a law forcing its Chinese parent company ByteDance to sell the app or face a ban.
Today, the Supreme Court is weighing in, hearing arguments over the app's security and free speech. The future of TikTok is our big story today.
Well, no final decision has been made, but a majority of the Supreme Court appears to likely uphold the controversial ban. Hearing arguments on free speech and national security concerns, the justices seemed persuaded by arguments that the national security threat posed by the company's connections to China overrides concerns about restricting free speech. The Chief Justice, John Roberts, says, quote, the main concern in the case of TikTok's ownership is the company's requirement to cooperate with the Chinese government's intelligence operations.
So are we supposed to ignore the fact that the ultimate parent is in fact subject to doing intelligence work for the Chinese government? It seems to me that you're ignoring the major concern here of Congress, which was Chinese manipulation of the content and acquisition and harvesting of the content.
Another justice also joining in, raising concerns about China and the ability to spy on Americans.
That they would use that information over time to develop spies, to turn people, to blackmail people, people who a generation from now will be working in the FBI or the CIA or in the State Department. Is that not a realistic assessment by Congress and the President of the risks here?
Well, Your Honor, I'm not disputing the risks. I certainly acknowledge the risk, but I think there are lots of reasons, not just the one I just gave, but there are lots of reasons why that risk still can't justify the law.
Now, it was not clear whether any justices would choose such a course, and only one justice sounded like he would side with TikTok to find the ban violates the Constitution. So we know the big concern with TikTok is security. We have cybersecurity expert Dave Hatter. He's with us. So what's the big risk here, Dave?
Well, thanks for having me on, Christine. And it's really twofold. You know, TikTok has been under fire for a long time for the amount of data it collects. I encourage people to go to the Apple store and take a look at the privacy label for TikTok. There's really no data that they don't try to collect from your devices. And there's been other research that shows it's even more extensive than that. But I think the more recent concern that's kind of bubbled up and what really has led to this ban, because a lot of folks argue, well, all these big companies collect your data. They do, but in this case, TikTok is owned by a Chinese company, ByteDance. China actually has laws on the books that require Chinese companies to turn over any data at any time. You can look that up for yourself as well. So you have all this really sensitive consumer data going to China. But again, I think the real issue now is it's become increasingly apparent that TikTok is being used for persuasion and propaganda purposes. There's a recent report from the Network Contagion Center, which is in conjunction with Reuters, about how pro-Chinese narratives are amplified and anti-Chinese narratives are suppressed. And so I think, you know, there's a concern on multiple fronts as we head into this potential ban and the SCOTUS attention to TikTok.
So when we talk about data being shared or taken by TikTok, as you mentioned here, what does that actually mean? Does that mean they know my username and they know a little bit about me?
I mean, they're basically collecting everything. You know, your very detailed information about your location, your texts, your contact list. I mean, there's literally almost nothing on your device, and some would argue, based on additional research, that there's literally nothing on your device they're not collecting. So, you know, they know where you are every day. They know who you talk to. They know when you talk to them. They know what you're doing. They know what you're interested in.
So you've said time and time again, you're not a big fan of TikTok, but you've also said that all social media comes with a risk here. So if we eliminate TikTok, does that just absolve all risk of using online platforms?
No, and I think you're making a really important point, Christine. You know, when you think about it, with most of these social media products and most of the apps that you download today, if you're not paying with money, you're paying with data. You are the product, not the consumer. I'm not saying that's necessarily nefarious, but the difference between, let's say, Facebook or Google, who are both collecting enormous amounts of information, is they're both American companies. Your data is not going to servers in China. It's not being accessed by the Chinese Communist Party. And I mean, look around. There's been all these warnings recently about Chinese infiltration in our telecom networks. You've got the FBI out there now encouraging people to use end-to-end encryption because of this infection in our telecom networks. You've got all kinds of adversarial relationships springing up around the globe with the Chinese Communist Party. The idea that you're going to give them all this sensitive information is not good versus, again, Google and Facebook, Amazon, other American companies that are collecting your data. They're American companies. So in my mind, there's a significant distinction between the two.
Dave Hatter, thanks so much. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Christine.
TikTok denies claims of misinformation and data stealing, saying its American operations are separate, and argues that the ban violates the First Amendment rights of freedom of speech. Today, lawmakers for TikTok urged the justices to enter a temporary pause that would allow TikTok to keep operating, adding that it could be a different world once President-elect Donald Trump takes office. Trump, once a critic of TikTok, is now seeming to side with TikTok, praising the app for helping him win over younger voters and win the re-election. President-elect Donald Trump filed an amicus brief this month.
And right now, TikTok has more than 150 million users all across the United States, making it one of the fastest growing social media platforms. In recent years, TikTok has turned from a viral video site to a must-have tool for a lot of businesses who are looking to connect with a larger and younger audience. Currently, TikTok has more than 5 million businesses, with 225,000 of those businesses being recognizable brands. Now, with the ban just a few days away, many of those businesses say they're left in limbo.
My business grew almost 800% after COVID because of TikTok. I'm not for sure. I know it will cripple me and I will be devastated. So I have no idea what I'm going to do if TikTok is banned.
Now, there's only one way to stop the ban, and that's by ByteDance selling the app. However, ByteDance has said it won't sell the short-form video platform. Still, some investors have been eyeing it, including Trump's former Treasury Secretary, Steven Mnuchin, and billionaire businessman Frank McCourt. If TikTok is not sold to an approved buyer, the federal law would prohibit app stores from offering this popular app. It would also bar internet hosting services from actually having TikTok as a part of what they're offering.